for him on Tuesday, and
Yeah. Okay.
it took him a while to figure out that was too early. So he's in a wheelchair and he needs help. People come in and help him every day, and
Yeah.
so he couldn't make the 7 o'clock one on Tuesday. But anyway,
All right.
have him come in
That's
again.
fine.
But I told him come in anyway on Tuesday to give us sort of an overview.
Yep. Okay. All right. That's okay. Welcome everybody to Talking Niagara this morning. Dave's off to get his coffee, and just want to welcome you all here. And yeah, so there we go. Welcome, and like and follow us on Talking Niagara on Facebook, and like and subscribe on my account on YouTube, and welcome. And there we go. It's Christmas, everybody. So welcome for a little while, and we'll enjoy having the show.
You too?
Merry Christmas, everybody. And there we go. Little gingerbread man for everybody.
Oh, you're cutting in and out.
Am I? Okay. Well, sorry, I was just utilizing some of the assets that they're showing us. Okay, so welcome to the show. It's all the news that we discussed that might be relevant to Niagara people. So Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, because we're off from at the end of today's show till the new year. 5th of January, I think we'll be starting when we come back. Dave?
Yeah. So you're cutting in and out here.
I'm cutting in and out.
Peter, I don't know if you can hear me or not.
I can hear you fine. I'm having no trouble at all.
So I'm hearing you, and then there's okay. Well, you're kind of sputtery, like so. I get a word or two, and then
Weird.
It's stopped, and then a word or two. So okay, it seems to be all right now.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Okay. So the first news that we've got here is that Israel could be turning. We talked about death penalty yesterday, but they're also looking at new settlements and this introduction of the death penalty. I don't like the death penalty. Never liked the death penalty. I believe it's a sign of a society that is not civilized. Right? Always have done. Sorry. If you believe in the death penalty, I think it's a bad thing.
Well, we find this situation becoming more and more. For the longest times, what Israel was doing to the Palestinians was being ignored pretty much every day. The New York, the American and Western networks were pretty much given the instructions: don't touch Israel. Do the odd article here or there, but don't really negatively talk about Israel at all.
Yeah.
That's just left it to the point where it's getting too bad. All these settlements in the West Bank, Gaza, and even in the Golan Heights, they're illegal settlements. And the world has said they're illegal. The UN has said they're illegal. Now, the ones in the UN or the West Bank are especially egregious. They've done what they've always do. They've changed the name of the West Bank to Samaria, which is one of the ancient Israel kingdoms. So they changed the name to that. And what they do here is very clever how they do it. Now, there are a lot of Israeli settlers in the West Bank, but they're not all in one spot. You would think that the settling movement would start on the Israel border and move in a big mass, moving to sort of north to south or east to west or west to east. But it's not like that. They go around and they make pockets of settlements, a settlement here, a settlement there, to checkerboard the whole place, and then isolate the Palestinian populations around, put their settlements around the Palestinian places, and then have roads that are restricted only to Israelis to use. That they're the only ones they can use them. And when somebody has to go to the hospital or something like that, the Israeli IDF forces make sure that the ambulance is held up for an hour or two, so it can't traverse the areas. Everything is made to make the Palestinians' life miserable. And the whole idea is to make it as miserable as possible and to force them to leave. And that's what they do when the settlers go in and they chop down olive trees, or they have archaeological digs where it knocks out villages and so on. And the whole thing is to erase the memory of the Palestinians, and also to make their life as miserable as possible. And the farmers can't, when they try to harvest their crop, excuse me, and they can't because the Israeli settlers stop them from doing it. It makes them like impossible for them to live, impossible for them to make a living. And so they just get frustrated and don't do that. And that's exactly what the Israeli government is hoping to do, is to make life as so miserable for the Palestinians, they willingly move out. And that's what a lot of them do. A lot of them eventually move out. But there isn't a whole lot of room. Like you get ridiculous ideas. Like back in the day, there was a time when one of the Canadian ministers said, well, why don't the Palestinians move to Canada? That'll solve everything. You leave Palestine and hand it over to Israel and come over to Canada. And at that time, he was talking about only about 300,000 people or something. That's quite a bit. And of course, the whole idea was, this is our land. Why would you move? We've been living here for thousands of years. But now you're telling us that that mostly European Jews that came here less than 100 years ago are now coming to take our land that we've been farming for over 1,000 years. What's wrong with this picture? Yeah. So the whole idea is to make
more than 1,000 years, several thousand years, because these are people who've been here, as far as we can tell, more or less forever. And when you go back to the biblical era, there were fights between these people back then.
The irony is that a lot of the people who are the Palestinian people are more likely the Jews of old, like the Jews that did not become part of the diaspora.
Yeah.
So when the Christian empires came out in, a lot of we do know that Jews were the ones that spread Christianity. So a lot of the Jews became Christian, obviously, and then later on, when the Muslim caliphates took over that area, a lot of the Jews would probably have converted into Islam, because it was a very similar religion, so similar dietary rules, similar all the same prophets, et cetera, et cetera. So the idea that they're displacing these Arabs out of the land that belonged to them, if they did the DNA on each other, they probably find out that in fact, DNA studies have been done, and they found that a lot of the Palestinians have Jewish roots, obviously. Yeah. So the whole notion of getting rid of these people to bring back our homeland is ridiculous. The whole idea, the Zionist idea, was born out of European bigotry towards Jews, and Theodor Herzl was the main driver of Zionism. And at first, it didn't consider just only Israel to be a homeland for Jews. They considered a homeland in Uganda and Argentina, but they felt that it would be easier to go into the old traditional homeland of Jews, which was in and around Jerusalem, because they could buy the land easily. They could buy the land from absentee Arab landlords, basically, fairly inexpensively. They had a lot of money to do that. And once they did buy the land, then they were able to expel the Arabs once they bought the land, which then precipitated the problems we have now.
When you think about things like Argentina, of course, it doesn't make any sense because, other than Jews that have emigrated to Argentina, there's no Jewish history there.
Well, it would be hard to get a homeland.
Yeah.
You're looking for an autonomous zone in and around Argentina, but Argentina being a very Western and Christian type country, they would probably walk into the same extreme racism they felt in Europe.
And especially since after the Second World War, there were a lot of Nazi Germans there as well.
Well, yeah. Well, we're talking about much earlier than that. We're talking about so they were worried more or less about the typical European bigotry towards Jews that would happen in Argentina. Uganda, of course, Uganda has been several times an idea of where they could go. As a matter of fact, in Uganda at one time had a fairly large Jewish population. They were the ones that helped out Idi Amin, but Idi Amin threw them out. As a matter of fact, if you watch a movie, it's called The Last King of Scotland. It was about Idi Amin.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah,
and he has a Scottish doctor.
Yeah.
Well, that Scottish doctor wasn't Scottish; it was actually Israeli. The Last King of Scotland, the Israelis worked a lot with Idi Amin until he turned on them, and the doctor they're talking about was actually Israeli.
Yeah.
But they don't want to put that out there because they think that's going to give a negative opinion of Israel for some reason. And then, of course, you had the famous Entebbe raid where Netanyahu's brother was actually killed. And that's a deep kind of thing. So that at one time, Uganda was thought to be a good place for Jews to start their own homeland. But they just found it easier to at first displace the Arabs, buy land, and get the Arabs off of it.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of money, their Zionist program, and that was working for a while, except that, of course, once the Arabs started getting pushed off their land and stuff like that, then, of course, you started getting friction. And at the same time, the British promised the Jews a homeland, but also at the same time promised the Arabs a homeland because they were run by the Turks at the time. And the early parts of Zionism, oddly enough, there were Arab and Jewish alliances, both seeing themselves being able to create a homeland for their individual populations.
And of course, it was at a time when the British were more or less promising anybody everything.
Yeah, indeed. And we find that we do hear about Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah.
As he was able to get the Arab forces all together and chase the Turks out of the Middle East in that area. But what we're not often told is that the British also trained and got the early Zionists on their side and did the same thing. Basically, trained them in military ways to fight the Turks, which helped them with their military resistance against the Palestinians later. It's a mess, really, when you look at all that. But right now, what they're trying to do, of course, is to make life as miserable as possible. We saw what they do in Gaza. They put a fence around it. They restrict movement. You can't come and go. You can't go fishing. You can't do this. You can't do that. 50% of Gazans had no job, and you lived in kind of a reservation. And the tunnels and stuff that are so famous now with Hamas in Gaza were originally smugglers' tunnels, because the Israeli forces would only allow X amount of things in and out of the country, in and out of Gaza, which was impossible for the people to live with the things they were allowing in. So they they began to smuggle in the tunnels. And the Israelis were fully aware of this, so were the Egyptians, and they kind of looked the other way. But once militancy took over and the tunnels were then viewed as military type, utilized militarily, and they became much more sophisticated at building them, then it became a problem.
And to talk about the West Bank, by the way, both Al Jazeera and the BBC are calling the settlements in there illegal.
Just about every Western country has called them illegal. It's not the first time they called them illegal. They called them illegal ever since they began, because that area was sort of ceded by the King of Jordan, basically gave up his claim to that so that the Palestinians could have a state there. But Israel wants a bigger country, and the unfortunate thing is they can't get the Palestinians to get out. They want an ethno-European state or ethno-religious state. That means you got to be Jewish religiously, and you got to be Jewish ethnically. So that's a problem for them. They want them out. Even the 20%, when David Ben-Gurion decided how many Palestinians were going to be allowed in Israel, they came up with 80% Jewish, 20% Palestinian. That is becoming questioned about by Smotrich and the other hard right Israelis. They want even them out. But definitely the West Bank has more Palestinians than it does Israelis, but the Israelis have the most water, the most roads, the most everything. Well, and they're just making it very tough for the Palestinians to make a livelihood. Imagine you're like a guy has worked his olive fields for generations after generations, and the olive trees are 100 years old. And somebody comes along with a bulldozer and knocks them down, because guess what? And they say the same thing all the time. God gave us this land. You know they did. You know God did. So you got to go. You're just being you're being stupid by saying you belong here. I don't care if you've farmed these lands for 1,000 years. You got to go, because God gave us this land. Now get out.
Yeah. And no. Yeah, I know what you're saying. Don't agree with it.
As far as Netanyahu and them think, they know that their country is rather small, and they want to expand their country. They want Israel to grow, and the size of Israel that is now is kind of tight quarters for the 10 million people they have. And so basically what they keep saying is, well, the Arabs got lots of land, so you go over there where all the other Arabs live. But that's not so easy, because each one of these people are ethnically Arabization, and Arabs are a different thing altogether. There are ethnic Arab elements, of course. There's the Bedouins and things like that. But most of the people who consider themselves Arab really aren't Arab ethnically so much. They are the people who lived in that land and became Arabized. Egyptians, for one thing, like Egyptians, Libyans, Moroccans. Moroccans is a good example. Like, most of them are Berbers. There's a lot of Arab blood in there too, when Arabs migrated that way. But most of the people are from the indigenous people that live there. Now, they all consider themselves Arab because they're Arabized, and they do Islam. They have Arab culture, things of that kind. But to call them strictly Arab, that would be erroneous, like DNA wise.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. Guys, snow out there, be careful. And we'll move on to this other one. There's a there's a road in Japan that is allegedly been swallowed by 65 foot of snow. That at first I thought, okay, interesting. Then I thought to myself, this was a fake article, and the more I look into it, there's actually a corridor here where pretty well every year they have to dig down to the road about 60 foot.
Yeah, you put that article in there. It's kind of an interesting article about an unusual corridor, snow corridor.
Yeah.
And so what is it? Is it is it just a kind of a tourist attraction, or what?
Well, what they're saying is the road is only open for about 7 months in the year, from April to November 30th, and it's 6,000 foot, about 6,500 foot above, up in the altitude. And when you got to that, it's like, okay, 65 foot of snow doesn't sound that unreasonable. And in order to dig a road down, what they're basically doing is, they're starting from the top and just clearing away a stretch of road at the time, so with bulldozers and snowplows.
They look like they're making a gorge,
Yeah.
cutting a gorge into a landscape of snow.
Yeah.
It's as if the Niagara was one big glacier or something, and somebody then cut a corridor through it, a chasm through it.
Yeah.
And that would be like the gorge we have now. And it's kind of interesting, the picture there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just a bit of a curiosity, and
I think it's more a tourist attraction than anything else.
Yeah, but they still have to open a road for the people there.
Yeah.
The expense must be considerable to do that.
Yeah.
To open that road every year. But if they do get tourist dollars from it, but they also would probably save money in the long run, because if there's an emergency and they got to get to the people that are isolated by that snow, that might cost them a whole lot more money if they didn't have a road in there.
Yeah.
And that big the big cliffs on either side of that road, man, I don't know. I wouldn't want them falling down on me as I'm driving through there.
And particularly in spring.
Well, yeah, the springtime could be bad.
Springtime, that could be a gully of, a 10-foot chasm of water, couldn't it?
Could be, and you'd be engulfed in a big slushy if it let go.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. Springtime, that could be pretty bad. So I don't think I would be thinking about traveling it if it was in the spring. Yeah. All right. It's interesting because, in fact, it's pretty, an introduction to the fact that it's actually snowing outside. It's been snowing all night, right? Let's talk Niagara. And it's been snowing all night. And as Mike said, stay safe.
Yeah, stay safe, everyone. We're getting really close to Christmas. Looks like we're going to have a white Christmas. I'm definitely going to have a white Christmas because my Christmas is tonight on the 23rd, because of my kids' other family obligations with their in-laws and so on. Tonight is my Christmas because normally it's I celebrate Christmas on Christmas Eve, and my kids come over to my place, but there's so many people wanting time around Christmas. I'm the flexible one. I can do it at any time, so I don't really care if it's on Christmas, or as long as I get to celebrate Christmas somewhere somehow with family, whether it's the 10th of December or the 6th of January, somewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's nice to be close to Christmas, but I was asked by one of my boys to, let's do it on the 23rd this year, because somebody's having their Christmas this, and other people are very much less flexible. That gotta have it on Christmas Eve or gotta have it on Christmas. That's what we've always done. Blah 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 blah. So they know Dad is flexible. So I will.
Mm.
I don't care what day it is, but so it's not going to be the 24th or the 25th. It's going to be the 23rd this year for me. Ho ho ho! All I
Yeah.
care about is showering me with presents, and I don't care when it is.
Well, yeah. I don't get anybody to shower me with presents.
Well, you're a dad. I'm a dad. Dads don't get presents. But I used to when I was a kid. I and we'd go under the tree and we'd get all our presents and stuff. And I'd look over at my father and he'd be just watching us, and he'd get a pair of socks or a tie or something, and he go, "Oh, this is one." He made a big deal about it, and my God, Dad gets ripped off every Christmas. He gets totally ripped off. Look at all the stuff my brothers and I are getting. Even my mom does better than my dad. Well, he's totally ripped off. I don't know how he could ever be happy at Christmas. He hardly ever gets anything. Well, once you're a dad, you understand. You don't want anything. You don't care. You want other people to have the stuff. You don't care for yourself because you don't need anything really.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's approximately the time your friend's going to come, but let's move on anyway, and we'll just take a break as soon as he does arrive. Okay.
Have you sent them the link?
I have already done so. Yeah. Yeah. So basically, if you're traveling to the US for the holidays, CBSA are giving you some travel tips. One of their key factors is going to be plan ahead, check what the border wait times are before you leave, and avoid the peak periods like weekends, evenings, and holiday Mondays.
Yeah, this is just an advisory on traveling during the.
Oh, here we go.
Is Eddie coming?
Yeah. Hi guys.
Hi there.
How you doing, Peter? Nice to finally meet you.
Hi. So, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you, sir. How are you this morning?
Yeah, not too bad.
Dave, how are you?
Oh, not well. You just interrupted one of my big diatribes. So okay, go ahead.
Well, I'll tell you what.
We need to do that though. Let's be honest. The truth is, the world needs to interrupt Dave's diatribe.
Yes. Well, I like him in spite of myself, and I do what I can do to ensure his public image. But
thanks very much, Eddie. Yeah.
We're friends, although I don't think he can publicly deny it now on this forum. I want to thank you both for giving me the opportunity to just speak with you today. I'm going to probably when I have some more data to back some of this stuff up with usage stats and things, have a longer conversation. But I just wanted to bring the issue forward that myself and a couple of our compatriots, these are people that range from 35 to 60. I myself am 55, are having trouble right now with the um, integration and non privatization of accessible transit within the community. There has been a move over the last few years to integrate transit to make it accessible for all. And yes, we do have accessible buses, but a lot of those um, can't accommodate the larger chairs and equipment and properly tie them down. So, what was instituted over the last decade or so was a non profit government funded fair transit system. And by fair, I mean fee based, but basically for the amount of a bus ticket. you can go from anywhere in the Great Lakes area theoretically for about $6 to $10 or $12, which is fine. But then the region offloaded that to a private company known as Voyago, and they are giving up the contract because people don't want to drive and work for 14 hours a day for wages. Now, that's an internal thing to do with the company. What I want to speak with to is the issue that um, just in general, the accessible transit, they're only putting one or two accessible cabs on the road for all of Niagara among the three companies.
Well,
Um,
actually, they did have accessible cabs. I don't know how many among all the three companies, but they have had some within each of the companies. And part of the trouble here is that, for a driver who's got an accessible cab, unless they're waiting, unless there is a flow of disabled people all the time, they're often the last ones to make money.
yes, I understand that. I've always said that the ones that take the disabled cab um, service on, they lose because it does take more physical work. It does. Um, I acknowledge that it does take longer to secure the device or the wheelchair in the vehicle. So
Yeah,
compared to your compatriot, you're making about half the money that your compatriot would, where the person just jumps in the seat and goes.
yeah.
I'm aware of that, but as
And
far as
even if that person, absolutely. So the disabled person to get from point A to point B on a $15 ride, let's say, there's so much more work has to be done for the disabled transit.
yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that point. My issue is if you're going to offer the service, as far as the cab companies and somebody's willing to pay for it, then try and make the booking available, particularly if we give you
Yeah,
um, 24 or 48 hours notice. But the other issue that I have is the region run or the private run transit, which
yeah,
is supposed to be accessible to all, has sort of reduced their bookings and their availability um, to the point where even if you're calling, 2 or 3 days ahead of time, you get bumped or you don't get a ride. Now, Charavan is better at this than, say, the Voyago, which used to be known as BTS or Niagara Specialized Transit. I don't know what the current acronym is because unfortunately they're going through a rebranding as the contract is up again for bidding.
yeah,
Um, and that just happened, since October. Unfortunately, I had a equipment failure the other day and hard drive crash. So the actual instant editorial that I'm writing, just in general, and some of my stats are currently inaccessible, which is why I want
hmm
to come back on when I have something a little more concrete. But I did want to start to bring this issue in because there's a lot of people out there. People are afraid of repercussions and just afraid of taking on the headache of
One of the things I was talking to my business partner with, Angela Brown, at our
yep,
law firm, we were talking that the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act was
yes,
something that came fully into force by January 1st, 2025. Yet there are still many commercial buildings and the like that are not accessible.
Well, just in general. I mean, in theory, yes, they're going to implement this thing, but they've extended grace periods because of the fiscal responsibility, the slow progression of just government bylines and retrofitting and all that. And I realize these things take time, but it's also 2025, and a fair number of us should be able to get from region to region for a reasonable cost.
Yeah.
Well, what if, like, what bothers me is that, like I've mentioned this before, a person I knew who, for a very brief time, I knew her, I helped her with a speech, and she told me that she was like you in a wheelchair, and uh, when she lived in Toronto, she could get around quite nicely. There
Yep.
was all kinds of services for her. She could go see her friends, get on the bus, get on the subway, et cetera, et cetera. That was accessible, so she had means of moving around from place to place. But once you moved down to Niagara, almost all of that was stopped. There was no buses. The caravan, of course, was limited, and it
Yes.
really isolated her.
Well,
Yes.
there was a
Sorry. Go
question.
ahead.
There was a question in relation to that. That the buses here, the Niagara Transit, are supposed to have they basically drop down and put out ramps for people in wheelchairs, don't they?
They do that, and there's some debate as to whether the drivers have the time or and are willing or physically able to tie you down.
Yeah,
So
let's point that out. When somebody in a wheelchair goes on a transport, they have to be tied down. The wheelchair itself has to be secured.
otherwise, you're a free radical in the vehicle.
That's
Yeah,
right.
I get that, because even if you put the brake on, that's still
Yeah, and
not
then
guaranteed. Yeah,
the brake's not going to hold when you're dealing with the inertia of a vehicle.
yeah, got
Um,
you. Yeah,
the
I,
So that
that's obvious, but I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm not, I'm not a physicist, but even I know that if on the right circumstances, I'd make an ugly looking hood ornament. But um, you know, but my point is that some of the younger drivers will do their best to tie them down, but the argument is that when you go on a bus, you're not dealing with seatbelts.
Yeah,
Um, and I understand that certain risk is assumed. I don't take the bus as often because I'm worried about damage to my body or the chair. Say if you're going into St. Catharines or over the Garden City Skyway or whatever, um, you know, and they
well,
have
you go up, you're rolling back, you come down, you're rolling forward,
yeah,
aren't you?
which is fine if it's Saturday night in the '80s and you had a little bit to drink, but you know, I don't want to be, I don't want to be dealing with it, um, at 55, at 9 o'clock in the morning going to the Penn Center.
Yeah,
So,
I
um,
get it.
but I mean, anybody who knows me knows that sarcasm without being mean or vicious is one of my primary modes of conversation, and I do have a sense of humor. Um, I'm well adjusted with the disability, and I have done advocacy at various times in my life.
Yeah,
But, yeah, no, the transit thing is 2025. We've been promised for years that this was going to be fully integrated by now. The problem I have with what the province did when they offloaded to this firm in Quebec is they're in it to make money. So what they will do is instead of you when you have a vehicle that you modify, there's typically two prevailing models or styles that have been prevalent in Ontario. And these are called vision conversions, which you see in the yellow cabs, which are a manual ramp that folds down. The wheelchair goes up inside or in a rear loading fashion. They put a belt around the front. They open through the side doors, and they lock the back. The ramp folds up behind you, and away you go. But
Yeah.
Voyago has got these side loading converted, usually 2016 Dodge Caravans or Sports, and um, it's a side loader, um, and they don't accommodate the bigger vehicles because you still have your rear bench seating because they might. And I realize it's shared ride service. I don't have a problem with that, but they might have a wheelchair, an ambulatory person with a walker, and somebody sitting there with an oxygen tank all on the same ride. So, yes, I don't mind being on um, the ride for up to 45 minutes and taking a scenic view of the Niagara region
Yeah, I get you.
because the money is right. But if you remove that back seat, charge a couple of dollars more, it would be easier to get the bigger vehicles in because right now the current model is like I'm a big guy. I'm sitting at over 200 pounds, but my wheelchair is a standard motorized wheelchair as far as um, things are. They are bigger because they have them with tilt seating and pressure release, and some have ventilators and that on there for mobile breathing machines. But the Voyago service is asking me when I'm in the power chair. Now I have the ability of being able to use both a manual wheelchair and a power chair.
Yeah.
Now, ideally, because I have severe scoliosis and I've had the body modified, um, I can't wheel as quickly. So, for me to do extended independence outside of my environment, it's better to go in a motorized chair. But Voyago and by extension BTS, which is the last acronym, I'm sorry, I don't know what it stands for, but it's successful transit and it goes from lake to lake. It doesn't go to Toronto, but I think it goes up to Hamilton Mountain.
Okay.
Um, but they're asking me to classify myself as an oversized wheelchair, which tailors the vehicle. But because of the availability of these, um, because of these vehicles being in limited or shorter supply, when you move up to a oversized um, vehicle, your eligibility for rides gets cut in half.
Oh, okay. And
So
there's some of these. I know in Japan they seem to be doing some fantastic new vehicles that almost walk upstairs.
yes, I'm thinking about becoming a Japanese import. All right.
You can't fit the sumo wrestling thing. You
Well, I do. I mean, I go for Baby Buddha, and you know, when I shave my head, it's a risk whether somebody will wonder if I'm sitting on a lily pad or not. But they don't stop and pray or give homage anymore, which is
Oh,
Damn.
you tried that scam, eh? Did you figured they'd be tossing you some coins? Oh well, all right. So we've got that revealed.
how's your hat, Dave?
Still fits.
Good.
I
For
should go
those of
get
you
it.
that don't know, Dave and I have a friendship, but I do sell him things every
I'm
once in
gonna
a
go
while.
get the hat.
You're gonna go get that.
So I believe you're in Kiwanis, is that right?
Yes, I I have the good fortune of working with those people. I've just had my first anniversary, but I've known a lot of the people in Qantas for a while. I don't mind volunteering. I was essentially involved with Easter Seals back in the 80s, which is dating me. But I was a teenager there and did quite a bit with them. And then I've always been active in the Mayor's Disability Advisory Committee when they had that under Paisley Chanbury Pool. Now, if you look at that hat, I think that is styling and profiling and just gives you an air of gentlemanly astute.
Yes, well, it helps me when when I'm thinking about starting my escort service.
Yeah, well,
I've got part of
you know,
the outfit already.
the 1972 retro look is in, but I'm telling you, you make it work.
That almost looks
That's the
as
same
if it's
thing. That's the same thing he said to me when he sold it to me. However, haven't been able to get the same kind of compliments from other people. I get the more like, what the?
It looks like a cowboy hat with a little bit of snow on the top.
Well,
it's
we
it's
actually
really
refer to it as something else, but I'm not going to mention that in this forum.
Yeah, well, try to extrapolate what someone selling escorts would be actually
Yeah.
in slang terms.
Okay. Well, we don't need to. We don't need to go any further.
We're not going there. But
Yeah.
But yeah. So what I wanted to say is that the integration is going a little bit slow. Rides are being bumped. As I say, Chairman is doing an admirable job for the most part, but the other service that goes outside is leaves a lot to be desired.
Well, Mike has made a point here, which is
Yep.
you would think that there would be a lock system designed in place on a bus. So you come on, you go to a specific physical location,
Yes,
and you lock it, and basically the wheels clamp down and lock in.
that is what they were going for. The only ones I've seen now, admittedly, I have not been on the city bus in about 9 to 10 months, just because I chose not to take the risk. But that's a personal choice. I do know that in the private vans, Dave, you and I have an associate that occasionally has taken me to a couple Qantas functions using his private vehicle, and there are automatic mechanisms where you put a key fob on the bottom of your chair. It's a sensor. You roll up, the key fob sends out a signal, and it activates a set of clamps on the floor, and it secures you. Money has always been a bit of a concern for me, so I've had to be a little frugal. So what I use is what the chairman uses, which is an old style Q straight, where you have manual tie down straps that are industrial grade that they put in tracks in the floor, and then they manually hook into your tie downs. You're probably any wheelchair now that may be exposed. Well, actually, any wheelchair has to be sold with what's called the passenger travel kit, which are tie downs attached and molded into the frame.
I've seen more in St. Catharines than here in Niagara Falls. These little vehicles where you basically open the back door, you drive you up the back in your wheelchair on a ramp, and then you've got this kind of little vehicle that it probably doesn't do more than about 40 kilometers an hour, and probably has probably only has it. Well, probably these days it probably has a 200 kilometer range, but
I
good
wish
for
my
little.
chair had that. I'd get into some real trouble. I get into trouble anyway. Those of you that recognize me, will see me all over Niagara Falls anyway in the good weather. I have in just over 2 years, I have 1,100 kilometers on my chair.
Oh,
So and the farthest I've been one way is Fort Erie, which I went down the service roads and the parkway. But that was just to give the chair a shakedown before I bought it. I wanted to make sure that the battery and the power system was as advertised. But I'm atypical, but I do average in the good weather in the spring and summer about 8 to 10 kilometers a day when
yeah.
when I do go out. So I just like I say, um, now in case
So I
anybody,
will point this out too. Like we were doing shifts at Staples, trying to get donations for the school supply drive that we do in conjunction with Staples, and Ed came out to help. Of course, trying to pull his weight as well as going into the store and talking to customers when they come in. Ed had to actually drive all the way from Atlantis all the way to the store on Morrison and Dorchester, basically, because he couldn't get a ride from.
and I had to one day I had to drive back, which I don't mind doing in the good weather. I'm
Yeah,
just I'm just saying that at large, it's the end of 2025. But don't get me wrong, because at 55, I also remember back in 2003, 2005, where your sole inner city travel was, and by inner city I mean between communities,
Yeah.
was cab based. Um, and I remember because I worked for the region and I had to go into different sites in St. Catharines, paying 240 a week to go to work.
Wow.
At the time, I was making good money, so I could absorb that. So don't get me wrong, I'm not bashing the progress that has been made because
No,
in
but that's
order to
the
go
thing.
in order to go to Welland for 20, 30 bucks, that's fine.
But
But
when you're talking about what you're talking about there is that costs. I work in St. Catharines. I drive there every day,
yeah,
and at the moment it's costing me. With the price of gas, when the price of gas has been about the 130 mark to 140 mark, I'd say on average I'm spending 60 to 70 bucks a week.
yeah.
Slightly less now. It's probably in the 50s, but that's per week because I've got with the car, and you're talking per trip.
Yeah, I was about $44, and that's if they gave me a rate if I was on the master schedule.
Yeah,
But that's back in '03, '05 through to '08 or '09. So what I'm saying is the existence of the system is a step forward. I'm not being totally negative saying it
yeah,
isn't working at all. I'm just saying
but we
we
have
have
to do more.
we have to look at further and quicker integration. The other thing is Niagara Falls is becoming, to a certain extent, a retirement community, and people are driving less.
Yeah,
Um, so your public transit's gotta come up and meet that need anyway.
yeah,
I would, and I don't know whether they can do it because, as I say, I don't have the numbers handy. Unfortunately, I do have them available, but they're locked away in a backup right now. So that being said, um, I would just, uh, like in Toronto back in the day, you had TTC and you had Wheel-Trans running simultaneously or concurrently, um, where you could just know where the stops were if you needed a ride. And I'm just saying, maybe have one vehicle on a bus schedule. I don't know about the logistics of how that works. Uh, I'm not aware of that. I would like to talk with somebody and get some information on that if anybody listening has any of
Well,
that.
it seems to me that I think Matt Cisco is the chair of Niagara Regional Transit now, isn't he? And is that a conversation that is being had with Niagara Regional Transit?
I don't know, but I would love to find out and be involved in that. I would be willing to give my time to that. Um, but that's just it. I don't know.
Well, and part of the problem here is there may well be a disability committee on on regional transit, but they might not include everybody from places like Niagara Falls, and and the more diverse you get of people, the more diverse you're likely to get the transit solutions.
Yes, and I realize, Peter, that doing anything by committee and consensus is always difficult,
Always, yeah.
particularly in today. I've been on enough committees and I've been on enough boards in my time, and I have the fortune. My family will debate this of having a fairly lucid mind, and the ability of self-expression, and when I choose to use it, a modicum of intelligence. But um, yeah,
You
what
hide it well.
yeah, what I'm saying with that is I have in my professional life served on some of those and
Yeah.
would be willing to serve on again as long as it wasn't just a rubber stamping kind of
I know.
yay or nay.
You're
Can we?
you're what you're saying is what I'm hearing there, sorry, is that
Yep.
you
No.
are looking for somebody, a committee that's prepared to take action, prepared to change things rather than just rubber stamping what the current status quo is.
Yes, I was trying to find a nicer way to say that, but that is exactly my point.
Okay, so
Just curious, like, can you describe what, like, when the Charavan uh, transitioned over to Niagara Transit, uh, did you lose service there?
There are certain times where the vehicles are not as accessible, but as I say, chairman, on average, about 40% of the time is still making um, the runs. It's also the third party privatization, though, of this intercity or between city and across the region um, thing that's fallen down, both because the guys that are working that system are working without a contract right now.
oh,
'Cause the contract is now open for bids.
Okay.
Um, and I have heard rumors that that Transit Story is trying to bring everything in house and eventually make it a full hub for both services, which is a step in the right direction. But there are times like during the day and certain days are busier with dialysis and school runs, and I understand. I understand that there's periods and needs, but I have been noticing, to Dave's point, as we said, when trying to get the Staples to volunteer for many of Quanta's initiatives, I have to either either I can get there and I can't get back, or I have to be prepared to cover the distance manually.
Yeah.
For those of you that may be wondering, I did have a vehicle and a license, but I had different back surgeries and paralysis and scoliosis and different things, and I didn't feel that my reflexes when I came through those surgeries were fast enough. So I did the morally responsible thing and took myself off the road at 28.
Oh,
Now, I didn't think that at 55, though, I'd still be, trying to find ways to creatively leave the city, um, to go and do things like a day at the shopping mall. So there is a little frustration on the part of the disabled community, and especially when people come down from uh, areas of a higher density disabled population like Mississauga, Scarborough, and Toronto. It
yeah.
is a bit. It is a bit of a wake up
Well,
call. That
and again, there's more disabled transit, more even taxi, disability taxi into places like Toronto or Scarborough are more
yeah,
likely to get a full-time, hey, I'm delivering disabled people all my day.
yeah. I realize the number of support services like that, but I also realize that um, it's time to come together and at least making a start. The problem I've always had with the cabs, and when I have talked to the various governing bodies at the municipal level, is the enforcement of licensing. So
Yeah.
what? And it's a sticky wicket, so to speak, because it is treading on internal business practices. But what they generally do, in my experience or observation, is they'll have the vehicles in the yard, but they won't run them, or they won't have anybody out on the road with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they have the equipment, but not the operators.
Right, and that's how they get around their licensing requirement, which is, and some of the cab companies have even sold a large part of their 3 or 4 accessible cab fleet. So now you've got one company um, offering the service on a regular basis, and if they're not available or they got nobody that wants to, you know, do the shift, then you're basically SOL.
Mhm. All right. Dave, we've kind of run over our time anyway. I think
Okay.
I'd love to have a fuller conversation in the new year, especially as you were saying you've got stats and things like that you don't have access to right now. So I think that
Yeah,
would be
that
a great
that
thing.
that unfortunately happened yesterday midday, and I was very unhappy to find that my hard drive decided to euthanize itself. Um,
That's the trouble with hard drives, of course. You need to move over to the solid state type.
I do, but unfortunately, there was a power surge to do with construction.
Ouch.
I'm down here just in front of Murray Hill, so with all the things going on at Mount Carmel right now, the monastery, we're getting some power disruptions.
Okay.
Yesterday it was my turn for people just to make my life a little bit interesting. But I want to, but I want
I
to
like
say,
the fact that you call it interesting rather than horrific.
oh no, no, I adapt very well. I'm extremely well healed, and
No. Yeah, I can
I
hear the volume of words that you cannot use on this show probably
oh yeah,
emanated from you.
yeah, but I've even managed to get Dave Wheeler into that hat. So I've had
Yeah.
I've had considerable. I've got a skill set, but I do want to say that it was nice to meet you both. I'm glad that you gave me some time on the forum. I'm not doing this for personal notoriety or anything like that. I just feel that the attention's got to have some light and a dialogue has to be started.
Yeah,
So
I agree. I agree. I think
that's
we're
all.
behind the times, and it's something, unfortunately, we then look at places like municipal budgets, and we're going to go, how are we going to fill that in? Big
Yes.
constant challenge.
Yeah, I realize it's a bigger issue. If anybody's listening from friends in our municipal government, as long as it's and I don't mean to sound conceited, I know that I do, but as long as it's a meaningful dialogue or an earnest discussion to try and come up with a
Yeah.
solution and partnership, I'd be willing to donate my time to it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Merry Christmas
Yeah.
to all.
Okay. Merry Christmas, Ed. Thanks for coming on.
Yep. And we'll talk with you in the new year, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Nice.
And Dave?
Well, Merry Christmas, everybody. This is our last show until the new year. And just think of all the people that are like I always talk about Gaza at the end of the show and the other war-torn areas like Ukraine. So now when we're going into this nice time of year, the one that we look forward to, Christmas, we have to think of other people and those in struggling areas of the world. So don't forget Gaza, and let's hope that ends very soon. And the peace part of the Christmas can come out and sort of survive in some of these areas. Anyway, without further ado, I bid you adieu. Thanks again, Ed.
No problem. Thank you for your time, guys.